Right gamers, I gave you the source the other day for the secret raider build that makes you basically invincible. Today I'm going to show you a build that is a little bit more risky, but you get a lot more damage out of it. And when I say you get more damage, under very specific scenarios, if you have gigantic balls, your damage can look something like this. What the fuck? Now obviously in most scenarios your damage isn't going to be that high, it's normally going to be something like this, but there are very specific scenarios where you can get nearly 1000 AR on just a Colossal. When you're just doing R1s or charged R2s, that is going to amount to insane damage. So enough yapping, let's get into the build. As I mentioned, it is a variation of the one that I've already shown, but there are some key differences and there are some things that you need to know before you use the build, because otherwise you'll just end up getting one shot all the time, dying, and you won't get any extra damage. Now the main relic that we're going to be basing the build around is going to be the relic of the Dreadlord, which you've probably already guessed that. And I know I have mentioned before that I don't think the Dreadlord relic is that good. I still don't think the Dreadlord relic is that good. I think the damage you get, it takes way too much effort to be able to get the maximum amount out of it. But there are very specific scenarios where it works perfectly, and this is one of those scenarios. So we'll go through the base relics first, and then I'll go into the deep relics, which is where the build actually comes into fruition, and this is the way you actually make it work. So top relic, that pretty much stays on consistently throughout all my builds now, not because of the skill power, not because of the melee attack power, mostly because of the occasionally nullify attacks when damage negation is lowered. I do genuinely think this is at least top 3 relics in the game. I'll go into a different video about that eventually, because I do think it's something that everyone should be using, especially in depth 3, 4 and 5. But yeah, that top relic is the balancer's relic, so that one always stays on. Second relic is the Dreadlord. Now the top one is the main thing we're going to be bothered about, and that is the status ailment gauges slowly increase attack power. Now for simplicity's sake, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but essentially if you have a status bar showing on your screen, every, I think it's 25 or 30 seconds, you get an attack boost of about 3.5%. It stacks up to 10, and when you're at level 10, you get a 45% damage boost, and that damage boost will last as long as you've got a status showing on your screen. Now, if the status disappears from your screen, I think you have about 3 seconds before you have to get another one back onto your screen before you lose the boost entirely. So the idea is to constantly keep a status bar on your screen, but I am aware that that's not always possible, so just try your best to keep the status bar on your screen. Things like walking into the rain or just, taking an attack from an enemy to start it off will just make it quicker. But yeah, the continued HP loss will put rot on your screen consistently. Now, for those of you who are watching on mobile, I have put some numbers on screen, but obviously they're going to be really small, so I need to figure out a better way to do it. But essentially, it's just me showing you that in the game files, level 1 is 3.5% and level 10 is 45%. Besides the damage boost, when you take an attack, you also get rot applied to your weapon, which isn't going to do much for the raider because of how low his arcane is. Now, if you use his arcane relic, if you can fit that in, it will be a lot more beneficial. But for the build that I'm showing you here, you won't get much benefit out of it. Maybe now and again you'll rot someone. And the last part of the relic is basically when you get rotted, or when there's rot in the vicinity, you will get health recovery. Now, if you do get rotted by taking the rot from the deep relics, which I'm going to show you later, this will counteract the rot damage that you're taking. Basically, you won't lose any health. And finally, this one is also a must on this build, is the partial HP restoration upon post-damage attacks, and the taking attacks improves attack power. Now, partial HP restoration we've gone through before, but essentially every time you get hit, if you hit them within a certain time, you get a portion of that HP back, and taking attacks improves attack power. This gives you a 15% damage boost for 20 seconds when taking an attack, basically. So because your deep relics may not have like physical up on them because you're prioritizing the physical damage negation, taking attacks improves attack power, just gives you a constant 15% damage boost, basically. So that's why you want to have it on. Now, as I have mentioned before, I do not think this relic is that good on its own. Paired with other things and in very specific scenarios, like this raider build, you will be able to make the most use out of it. Which leads me nicely into our Deep of Night relics. Now, the main thing you're going to want on this build is physical damage negation +2 if you've got it, +1 will work fine. The raiders hit with character skill to reduce enemy attack power, continue HP loss, and rot build up when below max HP. Those are a must to make this as optimal as possible. But essentially there isn't much to it. The continue HP loss will constantly keep your HP below max. When your HP is below max, you will have rot build up. When the rot is building up on your screen, you're getting the constant damage boost. Every 20 seconds, you get a 3.5% damage boost, all the way up until 45%. Now, if you can make it work with physical damage negation and physical attack power up, great, make it work. But the main thing you want to focus on is the physical damage negation with the continued HP loss and the rot build up when below max HP. And that way, you've got a constant ticking status gauge on your screen, which is going to give you a constant damage boost. Now, realistically, it's going to be very rare that you're going to have like the 900 AR that I showed you earlier. Most of the time, you're only going to be having like 3, 4, 5 damage boost, which is still like, 25-30%, which still means you don't have to run Evergels, you don't have to run Night Invaders. But the beauty of this build is you can also run those with this build, and the potential for the damage is absolutely insane, also while being able to trade with the bosses and doing a shit ton of damage. Now, I mentioned at the very start of the video that obviously it's a very risky build, especially early game, because if you're playing Depth 4 and Depth 5, until you have your damage negation up, like I mentioned in the previous video, so if you haven't watched that, go and watch that because it will be vital to this video. But essentially, you want to be having damage negation on charge attacks, taking damage, boost damage negation, successive attacks, boost damage negation, and the only other thing on this build is which you don't need is the damage negation at full, because you're constantly having the continued HP loss from your relics. So damage negation at full can just be dropped to your buddies, and hopefully, you make some rapport with your buddies then, they realise that you're giving them the damage negation at full, they'll give you the damage negation when landing charge attacks and taking attacks and all that stuff. As for how you make the build work, what you want to do is at the very start of the fight, you're obviously going to have no damage negations other than the ones on your relics, so go into the first attack using the character's retaliate skill. That way you're going to get a 15% damage boost, you're going to take an attack, your damage negation is going to be boosted because by the time you're doing this, you're going to have the taking damage boost, damage negation. You're also going to have lowered the enemy's attack power because you've hit them with the Raider's retaliate skill, and then you can land a charged R2. You're not going to get knocked out of it because of Raider's poise, and obviously depending on what weapon you're using. By then, you're going to have a damage boost of 15%. Your damage negation is going to be up from taking the attack, but also landing your charge attack. And you're also going to have status ailments on your screen, which is giving you a continued damage boost. Now gamers, that is pretty much it for this video. As I mentioned, it is just a different variation of the one I showed you previously, and it works really well. As you can see there, I've just took a Depth 5 hammer slam to the face whilst fighting the Dreadlord, and it didn't kill me, and I wasn't even at full health. So that shows you how well it actually works. Right gamers, I think that is pretty much everything that I need to tell you about the build. No doubt if I forgot something, there'll be an expert in the comments that will let you know where I've gone wrong. I'm only joking. I do appreciate you. Even when you do correct me, I appreciate that shit because I do forget things, I'm only human. But as always, gamers, stay safe. Catch you on the next one. Big love. Peace.